Hello there. So this is Santi at Soul Growth Wellness, and today what I'm going to be talking about is the premise of depression and anxiety and substance abuse. So what I want to be clear is that yes, I'm someone who's had to deal with substance abuse before. I've had to deal with alcoholism, and I've had to deal with what they call use disorder for marijuana, both of which I no longer partake in. I've been sober for over 3 years now. So that's just a little background on that. But basically, what I want to talk about is using those things when you're dealing with depression and anxiety. One of the main things that I'd like to talk about in this series that I've been dealing with in terms of self acceptance and self exploration and just kind of growth is dealing with what I had to, work on before I could even get to self acceptance. So, or even thinking about self acceptance, of wanting to focus on that and really loving myself and talking to people about that. So, that's something that they can identify with, something that they can learn from, that they can grow from as well. But basically, to kind of back up, the substance abuse is obviously still kind of like a dirty word. People still have issues in terms of thinking, well, why can't you just control your drinking? Well, why can't you just control your weed use? Or why can't you just control your heroin, cocaine, whatever substance abuse you're using? Or why can't you control your shopping? Or why can't you control how many people you have sex with? There are a lot of different ways that people have addiction issues. So first and foremost, whoever's listening to this and seeing it, please know that you are not alone. You are not alone in having issues with how do I control these urges? How do I deal with them? But to basically kind of get the premise out, what I'm trying to get at here is that depression and anxiety for me were the reasons why I used and why I was in such a state of substance abuse. I needed to, and of course, I needed, even now I use that word, I needed to deal with the anxiety, which the alcohol helped with. It made me feel social, it made me feel confident, it made me feel like I could, take on the world. It made me feel grandiose, much bigger than I really am. And that's basically what it gave me. And in terms of marijuana, it helped with the depression. It was a way for me to feel at ease with, the type of failure that I was dealing with in my life. I had issues in terms of, trying to graduate from school when I was in college. I had issues with my relationship, one of my very first ones. And I had a lot of difficulties just in terms of how I saw myself, thinking that I was a good person, a decent person, that I had that I had any sort of competence and or skills or anything that was useful or valuable to another human being. So since I was dealing with a lot of that stuff, obviously I was drinking heavily, I was smoking heavily. And what basically ended up happening is that when you use those things, when you self-medicate, because that's what that is, when you self-medicate with those substances, it basically creates a snowball effect where the depression gets worse, the anxiety gets worse. And they get so to the point that eventually the substances stop working. They stop working altogether, and now you're taking them in, and they're not doing anything for you. Towards the end of my drinking and towards the end of my weed usage, I didn't feel good about anything. And I obviously had terrible energy. I had terrible insomnia. My heart palpitations had gotten out of control. By the end of my drinking, I was taking a lot of, what is it, barbiturates or things like that, because I needed something to help calm the heart palpitations because my body was actually starting to reject the alcohol. That's how serious it had gotten. So I'm being very honest, very vulnerable here because I want people to understand just how serious it is when you self-medicate and you self-medicate to the point that the substances no longer do what they're supposed to do. When that happens, a change needs to happen. Something needs to give. And in my case, what helped me with my depression and anxiety, oddly enough, was giving up the very things that I had used to help with the depression and anxiety initially. And giving them up obviously wasn't easy. I had to get a lot of support. I'm a member of AA. I, focus on dealing with people in coaching, coaching colleagues, different support groups, all sorts of things to make sure that I stay sober and that I stay healthy. But the main principle and the reason why I want to mention this in this video and how it relates to my self-acceptance journey is that getting to the point where I was even thinking I might like me, I might want to be with me, like in my head, in my body, like just be with me, be with Santee, started with recognizing that I had to let go of something that was so incredibly toxic that it was just honestly was killing my soul. And I couldn't deal with that anymore. And the only way I was ever going to really have any chance to deal with the underlying issues, because we know there are underlying issues to depression and anxiety. So the only way I was going to deal with any of those underlying issues was to stop taking the thing that smushed it down, that just kept smushing it, and pressing it down. I had to let those things out. I had to feel all those feelings. Not comfortable, not fun, um, however, I highly recommend it because it's the sort of thing that really gets you the opportunity to release all that toxicity from your childhood, from your adulthood, just all the stuff that's really, really holding you back, and gives you an opportunity to grow and get to the point of, well, now I'm in a place of almost luxury. I can focus on something as simple as and as deep, though, as self acceptance, and just kind of recognizing that I'm an okay person. And I am not a terrible person for my past. You are not a terrible person for your past. None of us are. We make decisions, we make mistakes, and the whole point of this thing called life is to live, to grow, to learn, and to forgive ourselves and very much oftentimes other people as well. So that's just a little bit about the depression, anxiety, and substance abuse and how that relates to my self-acceptance journey. So if you like this video and you want to see other ones, you can go ahead and check out my page, Soul Growth Wellness. You can also go ahead and click subscribe so that you can go ahead and see more videos because I'll be talking about this all year. So thank you so much for listening, and I will see you again. Take care. Bye.